All right, another show, another week of Strange Normal. We got a lot packed in tonight. Let me ask you guys a question. What would you do if you found out the Witch of Endor lived in your town? Well, they might. Let me tell you right now. We're going to talk all about it tonight. We're also going to talk about how a popular TV personality is receiving lacerations from unknown beings at night while he sleeps. Yeah, a popular one too. We're also going to dig deep into what the Bible says about all this and find out what you need to know to mitigate it in your own life. Yeah, because that's going to come up probably in the next 5 years. Yeah, we'll see. Talk to you soon.
I don't care if you think I'm Satan reincarnated.
Demon spirits will declare themselves to be inhabitants of far distant planets in the galaxies that are coming to warn the inhabitants of planet Earth of the impending destruction of the planet.
It is now 90 seconds to midnight.
I still think these are what people call angels. I'm dying to know what they've got to say.
Pretty severe suffering brings them.
These entities have the ability to appear in any form.
Welcome to Strange Normal. My name is Bradley. We talk about the stranger things that happen in your normal life to give you a biblical understanding of what is going on. And there's a lot going on, so make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that little bell icon so you're notified when things like this happen. And folks, man, everything happens so fast. I forgot. I was like, what is that one thing I need to tell everybody? Oh yeah, we're going to talk about the election and Trump and Camilla and all that stuff, because that's a huge thing that's happening in the U.S. right now. And it's got some very weird ties that nobody really is talking about. That we're going to talk about tonight and reveal right from the Bible, that of something that is happening. And I want to show you guys, we're going to show the clip, a very short portion of it right in the beginning, because we're going to get right into that. But before I do that, and before I bring in my guest tonight, I want to talk to you about this one thing real quick that's so important. So this is from the Spirit of Prophecy. It says, we should study the nature and character and extent of the spiritual wickedness in high places, lest we become dupes of the powers of darkness. How difficult is it to awaken the minds to realize the continual activity of the great earnestness of our wily foe, notwithstanding the warnings and cautions of the Bible and the experience of many who have been overthrown by his subtlety. It's so important, I think, to really study this stuff out and understand what's going to happen here without getting too deep into the weeds. Because and there's a real balance when studying this stuff, because you don't want to be like, hey, you know what, I'm just going to go out and read Aleister Crowley's or Anton LaVey's, stuff. I'm going to go out and read all this openly demonic stuff, because that's not the role of the Christian. There's a very fine line between presenting this stuff and praising this stuff. And the way to mitigate that is absolutely to just douse it with the Bible. And that's what we're trying to do on this program, folks, is show you this is what's happening in your world. And we're not in this stuff like 24/7. We have a Discord server that helps us gather it 7 days a week, but it allows us to stay out of it but only a few hours a week so that we can stay 100% in the Bible and His Word. So what in the world are we talking about tonight? Well, there's a lot we're talking about tonight, and I'm going to bring in Christian to kind of help us. How are you doing, Christian?
Hey, Brad, I'm doing really well. How are you doing?
Very good, very good. You know, we got an interesting show lined up, and I'm going to bring up my notes here because this show is a peculiar one because we have a unique individual that has recently come in and started saying things that were really bizarre. And he's not a new guy. He's actually been around for quite a while, but he's recently become very prominent. I'm going to say that in the communities that are following this stuff. And so I'm going to play just a short clip of it. We're going to get into it, but I gotta, before I show you the entire clip, I gotta really introduce it, and we really gotta dig into what the Bible says about this because it's heavy stuff. And so this is it. Watch what happens here.
We are not really allowed to comment deeply on your politics. But since things are changing somewhat in the near future, we are checking to see what we are allowed to say. The female will lead to open contact. The male will lead to the termination of the United States and World War III. End of comment.
So that was a guy named Daryl. Let me get his real name in here. Anka. So we're going to talk a little bit about him tonight and look at his backstory because he's in the Reddits and the forums and the Twitters and all this other stuff right now because he's do I sound old by saying that? He's at the X. He's doing this thing and people are like, what? He's predicting stuff that's happening out of this U.S. election, and so he's actually not just predicting stuff off the top of his head. He claims that he is a channel. He is basically a Witch of Endor type person. He is a trance medium is another word for it, and he goes around and doesn't just do this stuff privately. He goes around and does these presentations, and people ask him questions. Oh my goodness, I watched some of these presentations and I'm just like, people are crying, they're getting emotional talking to this guy, and he's very revered. So I'm going to show you exactly what's happening here, and then we're going to dig into the Bible and show you exactly where it got real bad. But before we do that, I want to show, there's one guy that my mind went to, besides of course Saul in the Bible, talking to a trance medium, but the one guy that went to was in our lifetime. His name was Roger Morneau. And so Roger, he was a former cultist that became Christian, and he also had some amazing experiences because he was being recruited into a secret society, not just like some woo-woo, he's a part of the Masons or something. This was deep, much deeper, or I guess you could say much higher in the hierarchical society, much higher than a 33-degree Mason or whatever. He was what I guess we would call the Illuminati back if we were today. But I'm trying to put this in perspective here, but that's essentially what he's being put into. And he has some incredible stories with a lot of detail about this stuff, and it has been vetted by a guy named Chris Lang. He did a documentary on this stuff. I'm sure everyone knows this already, so I'm just going to go and roll the clip because this is him talking about it, I think in the 90s. He's no longer, he's passed away, but this is interesting stuff. So here's the clip. Ooh, there it is.
In your experiences in the praise services or in the worship room or the other places where you were, any of the places you were, did you ever witness an event where necromancy or even something that would be popularly called channeling today took place, where you actually heard the voice of someone in response to someone's questions?
Yeah, a number of times, but there was one time in particular that fascinated me because it was unique in one way. The priest told us that there was a French historian that was affiliated with Montreal, University of Montreal, which is a French university, and the English university is McGill. So the University of Montreal is the French university. And this man was from Paris, but he's affiliated with the university. And he wanted to have some details in regards to Napoleon Bonaparte and one of his generals. So, by the way, there are also in other parts of the world elite spirit worshippers like the group that we had in Montreal. And he mentioned there that, he said, you guys are fortunate when my friend and I went in, because you're right in time to see something very interesting. My friend there is having his devotions in the worship room of the gods, and he will use a trance medium to converse with certain demon spirits that will inform him in regards to ancient history about Napoleon. And sure enough, we went down there, and somebody came up and said he's ready for the session, and we went down there, and he said he would need 3 people. You would need 3 people, but he wanted 5 people that volunteer to be the channel for the spirit. Okay, so three of them was chosen there, and the others went back and sat down. And the man shook his head like, a little bit like this. His eyes went glazed, and he stayed at it for a half hour.
Okay, remember that. Those are characteristics of true possession. Essentially, what they're becoming a trance medium. Something is entering their body. What he said right there is really key to what we're understanding in the rest of this program. So keep listening.
And the spirit spoke to him. He said, I'm a spirit counselor. And what would you like to know? And he had a clipboard, the historian, and asking some questions.
This historian was from Paris.
Yeah.
And he was wanting information.
Some detailed information
about Napoleon
Bonaparte and one of his generals.
And so he asked the questions of one of these human beings that was channeling.
Oh yeah, the voice changed and everything. The voice changed of the person completely.
Okay.
And
it identified itself as a spirit guide.
Oh yeah, spirit counselor, yeah.
Okay, a spirit counselor. And then proceeded to tell him all the events that he was asking, answer his questions?
And there was a certain question that was asked, and the spirit counselor said, I will have Lord Remy and Lord Alphonse duplicate, in other words, the dialogue that had taken place.
Oh,
and
the two other drama.
Yeah, and the 2 other men fulfill what he was looking for. But the one thing that interests me is the mayor of Montreal, Camelien Hood. During World War II, at the beginning of the war, he was very controversial when in regards to the war effort. He would tell the French-speaking boys not to go into the armed service, see, because you're going to go and shed your blood for the British, and we're their servants, so to speak, and all that, and he didn't want them to go into war, and they put him in prison. He was jailed for the length of the war for this. Now, the man said, I would like to have you tell me, to the spirit, to give me part of the speech that was given by Camelien Hood on the steps of the Montreal City Hall on a certain date. There are different versions of what has taken place. And you, Lord, would know the exact one.
Now, the mayor of Montreal was still alive.
Was still alive.
And this historian is asking what was actually said at a speech.
Yeah.
Okay.
The spirit counselor said, I'm sorry, I can't help you. All of my activities and my people have taken place in Europe. However, after my departure, our departure, other spirits will come and help you.
Okay, so that's really interesting. I'm going to make a little commentary because this is a long clip, but it's very, very, very informative and very important, packed with information. Basically, what he's saying is, hey, they had a spirit, a demonic spirit come into this guy, and the spirit said, "Hey, I don't know everything," because they're not. They don't know everything. They're not omniscient like God is. But he said, I've been physically, geographically located in this area, but there's going to be another spirit that knows that answer, and he's coming in later. So that's interesting. Keep that in mind as we continue this clip. We're about halfway through.
And sure enough, the guy vibrated a little bit, and he's back, and he said, "Boy, how long?" He said, 20 minutes. You've been used as a channel.
That's loss of time, which is another thing that ufology says. We've lost time, and we must be some kind of time traveling. No, it's because you've been possessed. Anyway, we'll continue.
So they again, the spirit entered into him, and the spirit said that he was a spirit counselor that could give him the information that he was looking for. So again, it was given verbally, and it was the voice of Chameleon Hood.
Now, how did you know that it was the voice?
Well, because of the fact, you see, I was a youngster in those days, just about ready to go into the army. And Chameleon, we used to listen to the radio. We had no television in those days, so it was only radio, and read the newspaper. And all the speeches of Chameleon made and all of it was on the radio all the time. And in those days, they had no tape recorders, as we have now. So Chameleon would have to go to the Canadian Broadcasting Studio, where they made a record, a real phonograph record. And then they played it over and over, for the rest of the day.
So you listened to those as a teenager before you went into the army, so you knew his voice.
So I knew his voice really good. So I said to George, he was sitting next to me, I said, "Isn't it amazing?" He said, "If you think that's amazing, wait," he says, "until the spirits impersonate one of the departed people that you know, personally, like an uncle or a brother or a sister or something like that." He says, "That is unique." But that's the way it was. You are able to reproduce a voice, man, and the just to perfection. The spirits are exceedingly proud of this. The priest was telling us that necromancy, as I mentioned earlier, is the belief that the dead have entered into a higher state of existence, etc. And he says, for centuries, friendly demon spirits have worked diligently to establish and uphold in the religious convictions of all people the belief that man has an immortal soul. Then he boasted about the fact that the master was so smart in that he had deceived the whole world, even in this age of great scientific knowledge and understanding, due to the fact that the millions of the earth people believe in people having an immortal soul. He says it'd be readily accepted when the spirits will, through a trance medium, converse with influential people.
Okay, so he said trance medium. When they converse with a trance medium, something's going to happen.
Of the line, you see.
Now, what is a trance medium?
It's a channeler today.
What is known today as a channeler?
Channeler, yeah.
Okay.
He went on explaining about the fact that the spirits will show themselves willing to give valuable guidance that will not only help people avoid the destruction of the planet, but it would cause them to enter into a higher state of existence. For instance, he said the spirits will promise, this is a big word, promise, that if their recommendations are followed carefully, they will usher in a glorious new age of peace and prosperity. And there'll be, there'll be no more wars, you see. There'll be no more famines. There'll be no more people getting unhappy with one another. Neighbors will love neighbor, and social unrest will not take place no more. There'll be perfect happiness for 1,000 years. That's what the Spirit is going to promise. And
almost like the Garden of Eden created all over again.
And now we find that a lot of preachers are preaching the great age of glorious new age of victory over wars, victory over social unrest, victory over famines, and victory over all kinds of.
And he used the words "new age" to describe what was coming.
It would be a glorious new age, yeah.
All right. So I know that's a long clip, but what's interesting about that is it really talks a lot about what's happening here. And when we go into looking into this guy's story, and pardon me, I have squeaking in the background because there's a new puppy. And that was supposed to be put somewhere else, watched by someone else this today, but something happened. And for some reason, she's not there. But that's okay. We're going to continue. we have. I lost my place. Let me see here. It's fascinating what he says, especially at the end there, because what?
I mean, it's just so full of information. It's so packed.
It is. And he talks about what's interesting is he talks about the spirit, the dead, right there at the end. And I know we covered that a lot in this program, but I want to make sure people understand this is how the deception is going to happen at the end. Yeah, it's going to have a lot to do with spiritualism and aliens, but that's just the initial start. Once people see these things, they're going to say, "Oh, look, my dead relative is also appearing with these things," and they must be the angels of the sky. We talked about in the last program where we went over the different progression of events that'll happen. But I mean, let's just look at a couple of these Bible verses, and then let's go on and find the rest of the program that where we actually get into the meat of it. Where we're going to talk about this guy and what he's actually saying that affects our life. One of them, and I realize I'm monologuing here, but I'll say some of these things, just a couple of these verses, and I'll hand it over to you. This is Job 14:12. It says, "No man lies down and does not, so that's a difference there. So man lies down and does not rise till the heavens are no more. They will not awake nor be aroused from their sleep." So man lies down and until heavens are no more. Well, when is the heavens no more? Well, when God comes. That's in 1 Thessalonians 4:16. "For the Lord himself will descend from heaven with a shout, with the voice of an archangel, with the trump of God, and the dead in Christ will rise first." Well, when does the dead rise? Well, Job said it here. So they will not awake or be aroused until the heavens are no more. Leviticus is very interesting to me, because people that taught that the dead could be contacted, necromancers, the Bible taught that Israel should kill them. A man or a woman who is a medium or who has a familiar spirit shall surely be put to death. They shall stone them with stones. Their blood shall be upon them. In other words, hey, you're not guilty. These people have done it to themselves. So I think it's vitally interesting that we understand not only when people say that, hey, they can speak to people that were dead. We have evidence from Roger Morneau showing that these entities, satanic entities that he was involved with, can mimic someone else's view on or voice and enunciations and stuff. Even act out as they are, because the other two guys were doing that. And then you have this possibly happening in the future, not very far future, less than a decade. We're going to find that out in the rest of this program tonight. But what are your thoughts on this, as I have really monologued, excuse me.
There was a couple things that stood out to me. One, he talked about the place that they were in was called the worship room of the gods. And if you remember from last week, we were talking about how
heathen deities
will manifest themselves, right? And you've got something interesting, like, for example, in the Bible, Psalm 96 verse 5, it says in some translations, I think particularly the Catholic translation, it translates this verse as, "For all the gods of the Gentiles are devils, but the Lord made the heavens."
All the gods of the are idols.
People are idols. Some translations say devils. I think Douay Rhymes, you can check.
Douay Rhymes? Okay.
Yeah.
Dude, there's so many here, and it's not even in order. Let's see, where is there? Darby Dewey Rhymes. There it is. Well, I wonder if that paper was important that the dog is chewing up right now.
It's your homework.
Hold on, everybody. I have to make a little commercial break. All right, say hello. Anyway, continue, please.
Yeah, and it just spoke to me. Like, they call them the gods. I think the spirits, they enjoy worship, right? Because he made a point where he said he made a distinction of a type of spirit. And if you ever watch his whole video, like this whole interview, which you should watch because it's one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. But he makes distinctions on different type of spirits. Like, some spirits are destructive spirits, and some spirits are friendly demon spirits. Some spirits, they're friendly, and he mentions that. He said that friendly demon spirits have been working in the world to like indoctrinate people to believe in the immortality of the soul.
I see what he's saying here. Okay. Yeah,
And
just like
friendly spirits. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no. I interrupted you. Go ahead.
I was gonna say friendly spirits. It's like, how in the Bible it's called familiar spirits.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same. It means the same thing. Familiar in the sense that they show kind of kindness and favor towards you,
Or even familiarity. Yeah.
Yeah. So to me, I just, because the thing for me is I always thought of demons as being like evil and just want to kill you and destroy you, and they're just gonna rip you apart. But when I realized that some demons, they want to almost seem like as if they were your friend.
Right. Right.
Like they want to help you. They want to give you some nice advice. They want to help you succeed in your career.
Right.
So
Yeah.
when you have this kind of vision of a spirit being very narrow, or a demon being very narrow, then I'm sure so many people have been caught off guard. They're like, oh, the spirit, like, why would I feel at like, I guess, why would I feel defensive against someone that wants to help me?
I've
You know
heard
what I
people
mean?
say this. Yeah, they say, well, wait a second. What are you're saying? And I've said this in Starfall. I said, demon spirits are going to come and they're going to present themselves as here to help us, and while also making huge catastrophes on Earth. And they're going to say, wait a second. So you're saying demons are going to help us? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And Marneau goes into more detail and says there's 3 different types. I can't remember off the top of my head, but he says there's friendly ones, but they have the same agenda. And then there's absolutely all the way down to the ones that are just here to cause absolute havoc. And we're going to talk about those when we talk about Tucker Carlson, who I mentioned at the beginning of the program. There was someone that is receiving some lacerations while they sleep. Really interesting clip that came out just this week. And so it's interesting to me that all this stuff is happening right now. And there's 2 big errors that we have to watch out for at the end of time. And this is what White says about that. It says, through 2 great errors, the immortality of the soul and Sunday sacredness, Satan brings the people under his deception, while the former, which is immortality of the soul, lays the foundation of spiritualism, what's going to happen on the world. The latter creates a bond of sympathy with Rome. The Protestants of the United States, this is why we're following what's happening in the United States right now. We're not really focused on Europe and India and China, will be the foremost in stretching their hands across the gulf and grasping the hands of spiritualism. They will reach over the abyss and clasp the hands of the Roman power. And under this influence of this threefold union, the country will follow in the footsteps of Rome in trampling on the rights of conscience. So that's the essence of what we're covering on this program, and it's also the reason why so many people are thinking to themselves, you know what, maybe I don't need to be so reliant on the world right now. I need to be reliant on God and stuff like that. And so, which is why we created that preppers group, not to see how much ammo we have, because I don't think that's the right way to do things at all. A lot of these other preppers groups. But it's to say, okay, how much are we prepared health-wise? How much are we prepared to ready a storm that could have come upon us, not only spiritually, but also maybe just through a natural disaster like we saw in North Carolina and stuff. And so it's lots of stuff is happening right now. And by the way, I'm just going to throw this out there for anybody that's listening. If you want to help support us, it's free to you. You can, if you're looking for a property, if you're looking for another house, no matter if it's just another suburb that you're looking in, contact me first. I'm going to put my real number on the screen or on the comments below. 423-749-0000, all 4 zeros. And that'll go to my business, and we can help you find a real estate agent that is correctly aligned with your ideas. Because it's important that I think not only we find somebody that is not going to just put you in a database and say, oh, you want to go see something, that's good, but they also are looking for the correct idea of what you're looking for as well. And if that's you, if you're looking around right now, maybe you have a real estate agent in mind, great. You contact me first, and I will contact them, and it also helps this ministry continue. Commercial over, but that's how we continue this program. So, going off into these different things that are happening in the world right now. If you have any comments on it, I'm going to go and talk a little bit about the things that we're doing this week, and then we'll continue. Well, I put my puppy on the floor. No comments, Christian?
Oh, sorry. Comments on what we've been talking.
No, that's fine. That's fine. If you have no comments, then I'll.
Yeah. No comments for me.
Oh, yeah. So what's interesting, I think, is that we, Mikey and I, this week, we're going to go and we're going to talk a little bit about to some guy named Lou Elizondo. I've been talking about that in the last program. I'm going to try to bring that up here on the screen. This is. I can get it to work. Let's see if this works. All right, here we go. So if you haven't already seen it, if you go into the comments, the pinned comment, you can see a map, and everyone that's listening has been adding their. They can right click and you can add a comment to this map, and it puts a little icon on the screen, and. I am looking at the place we are going to, Mikey and I. We're going to this place all the way over here in Augusta. And it's a little tiny area just above it that has an auditorium that we're going to be listening to this guy and hopefully asking him some questions to point him in the right direction. There's only one user that has been listening to us in this area. Maybe there's more. But if you're in the area, we'd like to hear from you as well. Because we're going to come here and we're going to do that. And Lou Elizondo, of course, is the guy that we're coming to not see for fun, but mainly to, number one, content and understanding of the channel, so we can understand this deception, like we spoke about in the previous quote. But also number two, to hopefully guide this in a more spiritual direction, as this gentleman seems to be a little bit deceived about what's going on here and is a very, very heavy influence on what's happening. So that's one of the things we're doing. Also, there is huge, these next 2 episodes are going to be massive, because we're going to be talking about on the 5th, of course, the election, but not on the 13th is going to be a House hearing on this spiritualism. In other words, there's going to be a hearing in Washington, D.C., on the 13th, talking about UFO spiritualism and what it actually is and what the government has been doing about it. And then on the 19th, the following week, they're also having a huge thing about it as well in the Senate. So that one's the first the House, then the Senate. So there's lots of things happening in the government right now, and we're going to cover it all. So make sure you check back, and so we can understand the spiritualism and help other people understand the spiritualism as we continue through this interesting predicament we're in. That's all I have to say about that. Let's get back into our program if you're interested.
Let's get it.
Let's get it. So let's introduce Darryl Anka. This is the guy who we were actually really digging into tonight. Who is he and what does he do? This is the clip. Watch this.
I'm Darryl Anka, and I am a channel for an entity that we call Bashar. The channeling state in the brain is called the gamma state, and it's between 40 and 100 cycles per second. When anyone is in the zone, when they're doing what they love to do, and you feel like time has disappeared, you're in the channeling state.
All right, I'll say good day to you this day of your time. How are you all? All right, let us continue with our transmission regarding the next phase of open contact. As we transmitted in the last transmission, the idea is to prepare yourselves for the introduction of extraterrestrials within the course of the next 5 of your years.
For the last 40 years, Darryl has been traveling across the globe, filling out event spaces with thousands of people in attendance, all of whom gather together to watch him channel an extraterrestrial that he calls Bashar.
Christian, a lot of people in the chat are saying they've seen him before. And who is this guy? I had a clip of him on that he did on Vice long ago. I didn't think he was anything big deal, but apparently this is a much bigger deal than I even expected. What are your thoughts so far?
It's definitely creepy. That's what I feel. It feels creepy for sure. You know, and to me, it's like I see things like this, and it's like it encourages skepticism.
Yeah.
You know, which I feel like maybe is something that they don't mind.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They don't mind when you feel more and more skeptical about it, because that's how they catch someone, right? The more skeptical somebody is, and when they finally come face to face contact, you know, then it's that whiplash that gets them like completely
sold,
grounded, and sold. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, that it makes an even better convert if they are skeptical at first and they have to figure it out for themselves, and instead of just told, yeah, this is what it is. It's very interesting to see. Let's dig further into his introduction here, because that's just a portion of it. I think this is further into it. Watch this.
Darryl told me all about his life growing up here in Los Angeles and the path that led him to a successful career in filmmaking and miniature sculpting for multiple blockbuster movies.
Okay, did you see that? So this guy's been involved in Iron Man. He's been involved in iRobot, and he's been involved in The Day After Tomorrow. I've seen all these. This is before I was, convinced that this wasn't something I should dig too far into. But I think it's interesting that what he's saying here is, and I'm going to give you the timeline of events before he actually tells it to you, is that he was involved in seeing these weird apparitions and UFOs. And then he got involved in Hollywood media and brought that stuff to Hollywood media, and this ideas of seeing things that shouldn't be there. I think he was a spirit medium during these things. So you can see how that would affect the movies being produced. I'll let that be, because that's for a whole nother episode. But let's continue.
A passion that ultimately led him to where he was always supposed to be. So you've worked in the television and film industry for a long time.
Yeah.
And I guess you were working in it when you were 30, 31
My
years
30s,
old,
yeah.
right? That's right. And during that period of time, something really remarkable happened to you. Probably one of the most remarkable things I've ever heard of in my entire life. So I was wondering if you wouldn't mind sharing the story of how you had your first encounter with something not from this place.
This thing was hovering about 60 feet above us, and it just took off straight up in the blink of an eye, just went like that, and it was gone. It was those sightings that really turned the world upside down for me and started me to investigate what this was all about.
All right, I skipped obviously a lot of it in my editing process because a lot of it's not necessary. Basically, he saw something. It changed his reality, as we've always seen this happen to people. When they see this stuff, it changes their perception of what's going on. It causes them on a whole different life trajectory.
Because now I'd seen something completely real that was supposed to not be real at all. And eventually I came across all sorts of other metaphysical information, such as channeling. And I was introduced to a channel who was practicing at the time and went to the seminars and thought there's a lot of interesting information here. Eventually, that particular channel offered to teach a channeling class. And I entered it not because I thought I was going to become a channel. I just wanted to see how something like that could be taught. It was about furthering my research. But during the class, which was full of guided meditations, a connection was made.
Okay, so what's interesting to me about that is that he went to this class, a connection was made, and I don't think I included the clip. Maybe I did, but he also met his wife there as well, solidifying his next step into life, which becoming this channeler, and now he makes a living doing this. I mean, I don't know about you. Christian, I don't even know if you're married. I assume you are, yes. But if my wife was completely against me doing this ministry, it would really affect me doing this ministry because we're so tied together. And so she's completely on board with this, and she's like, you know what, I'm not going to be able to, I don't like being up front. I don't want to see my face on screen, but I approve of what you're doing and understand the importance of this. And so he has the footwork laid, I'm convinced, by the devil himself. And then the devil's like, by the way, I'll give you someone to help reaffirm that. So that's there's more to the story, but what do you think so far?
He talks about how he kind of went into this channeling thing from an angle of research. So you really see just the dangers of kind of waddling into forbidden ground, you know? So if anyone out there is a skeptic, if anyone out there just wants to try it out and see what happens, I would say think twice. I remember I said this to my wife. She got like a Ouija board, but this was years ago, before she was a Christian. And she had a Ouija board, and she was telling me that she wanted to try it out. You know, it's like, what's the worst thing that could happen? And I remember just instilling the fear of God in her. I said, listen, there are many, many bad things that could happen, you know? So when a lot of people go into these things thinking it's just like woo-woo, right? Like that kind of expression, just woo-woo stuff. And they come out changed forever.
Yeah, they really do.
You know what I mean? They come out changed forever. Never underestimate the spiritual world, because it exists and it's real. And there's a war going on. You know?
100%. I'm reminded of a story that's told me, passed down through my family of my father's side grew up in northern Maine, Presque Isle, Maine, and they were dual citizens with Canada and stuff. And so they grew up there, and my aunts, uncles, I forget if it was my grandmother or how far back it went, but they said that they had a Ouija board, and the kids were playing with it. They said they had asked it if they should go to a local Adventist school the next year as they were transferring schools. And they said the table stood up on two legs and chased them up the stairs and wedged itself inside the hallway, and they couldn't loosen it. And
goodness.
I mean, weird things happen, and you just got to be very careful what you're digging into, because it's a real thing. I didn't expect to tell that story, so I don't think I'm on my script here, but That was the introduction to Daryl Anka. I think I'm saying his name right. Let's hear what he says about his role in society and understanding this whole thing.
It was just like somebody just shoved a DVD into my head. Bang, this memory came back of having made an agreement before this life to do this with Bashar. I understood that the UFO was his, and it was shown to me.
The UFO you'd seen
that
10
I'd
years
seen
earlier.
10 years earlier was shown to me on purpose to get me to start researching, to educate me.
To get you
so
ready,
that, to get me ready, to get me prepared. And I saw an image of his face there, and I heard the word Bashar. Now, it's an Arabic word. I don't speak Arabic.
What does it mean?
It means messenger.
We're going to come back to that in just a second.
Which is appropriate. But I didn't find that out till years later when somebody said, do you understand that that's an Arabic word? I said, no, I thought it was his name.
Right.
He goes, no, it means messenger or bringer of good news. So I go, it's appropriate for what he's doing. And we needed something to call him because in their civilization, they're telepathic. They don't have names.
Right.
But he knows we need something.
So it was less his name and more his title, really.
More what he is, what he's doing. And so all this happened in my head in a split second. I hadn't said anything to anyone. But the minute this happened, the entity coming through the channel stopped talking to the class and turned right to me and said, there's an entity here for you right now if you're ready to begin.
Aliens. Okay.
I happened to glance behind me, and one of the other classmates somehow had picked up on Bashar's face. She was actually sketching it on a piece of paper. So I knew right away I had two.
So at the same time that you were having this
vision. At the same time, she saw the same
was doing
face.
The same thing. Wow.
And I said, okay, I have two outside validations. This is not just my imagination. The first communication was in that moment where he said, now you are ready to begin if this is still something you want to do. Is it? And so I had to stop for a minute and go, okay, am I hallucinating? Is this my imagination?
Do I say yes? Do I say no?
Yeah. But again, like I said, these two other things happened that sort of validated that something was happening, and then getting offered the opportunity later to co-channel the next class, which is, by the way, where I met my wife, Erica.
Boom. So it's interesting, huh? This is how you can kind of see the progression of events that are happening here, and if he was making this up, it'd be very interesting to an interesting story to make up, because he had different things like this happen, and they seem to align with a demonic plan as we understand it through the Word of God. Is anything stick out to you while you were watching this?
He said a memory was implanted about his past life.
I know. There's so much error. And that's really interesting too, because a lot of these people that get into this stuff, they get into like things like hypnosis, and they say, well, I can find out what happened in this time that I lost if I just go and get hypnotized. And when they say that, they say, oh, but I was all of a sudden able to remember. A memory was given to me. No, that's not what happened at all. These things have shown you things that you think you remembered, but you didn't. So it's fascinating.
It's very creative. Also, I'll give him that.
And so that's kind of what was going on with this guy, all over the philosophy of Bashar. Let's dig into that real quick, because if this is truly a demonic entity that is, or is he actually just presenting this stuff off a whim? If it's true, then we're gonna see characteristics of that in what this entity is trying to present, and I think that's worth analyzing. So here we go.
The one thing that Bashar talks about, like I said, is passion, and he explains why that's important. And when I allow myself to really apply that in my life, magic happens, synchronicity happens, everything just expands. And that's, I think, been the most impactful thing in my life. It's changed me emotionally, it's changed me mentally, it's changed me even physically. Because Bashar is very big on saying, follow your passion in life.
That's the core of
That's the core of his message, and there are many principles that go along with that. But just to keep it simple, follow your passion. If I'm not allowed to follow my passions,
then
then,
It's
I'm
also
not
not-
getting anything out of it. I'm just being a telephone. It's very important for the channel themselves to evolve and to grow, which actually helps the channeling too, because you open up more and you expand more and more can come through.
You're like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Exactly. So if you're not allowing yourself to live the full life, then the channeling suffers as well.
Interesting, huh? So it sounds very innocuous. Yeah, you just follow your passion. How was that wrong?
Yeah.
But I
Follow your heart.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly where I'm going with this. So it's the same message repackaged. Follow your passion, follow your heart, do what thy wilt. And it's all about you. Yeah. And it's all you. All you have to do is follow you. When the Bible is clear. So what's funny is today I installed this plugin from ChatGPT, and I didn't realize it, but it made ChatGPT my homepage. So I quickly tried to look up a Bible verse, and it Googled it instead. So I'm kind of curious what is, because I was trying to find you remember that verse that says the whole duty of man is to keep the commandments of God and have the faith, or keep the what's it?
Ecclesiastes 12.
That's
13.
it. Yeah, and so I've typed that into ChatGPT. What is the purpose? What is the purpose of man? I wrote a Bible, and so because I knew that the Google's pull it up. ChatGPT says this. This is interesting. According to the Bible, the primary purpose of humanity is to glorify God and enjoy a relationship with Him. This is encapsulated in Isaiah 43:7, where God says, "Everyone who is called by my name, who I created for my glory, whom I formed and made." Additionally, Ecclesiastes 12:13, which is the verse I was trying to find, emphasizes the importance of reverence and obedience. Fear God and keep His commandments, for this is the duty of mankind. So this is kind of neat that it was able to pull all this stuff out in a second. Another is 1 Corinthians 10:31. So whether you eat or drink or whatever you do it all for the glory of God. Notice the trend here. It's not about do what you want or do what your passion is. It's not you. It's God. You are created for having a relationship with God. Genesis 1:28. God blessed them and said to them, "Be fruitful and increase in number, fill the earth and subdue it, rule over the fish in the sea and creature." And so it's going into other things that we are supposed to do. In summary, the Bible teaches humanity's purpose encompasses glorifying God, maintaining a relationship with Him, obeying His commandments, and responsibly stewarding the earth. Well, bravo! I actually am pleased with that answer. And for once, ChatGPT, you got something right here. And that was on a whim. This isn't in my script to talk about tonight. This was just an accident. But fascinating, huh? But anyway, do you have any comments before I move on to the next clip? It's really interesting.
It's like, I think once you get like used to the how do I want to say it? I think the red flags of this movement, it's like there's always just certain phrases, certain phraseology, certain way of that just immediately when you have kind of the background of the Bible as your source of truth, you understand directly, or you understand so quickly. Like I see demonic influence here. I see demonic principles here,
Yeah.
So it's like you need to have the Bible as your sole source of truth, because it's the only way you're going to be able to stay free from this kind of stuff. Like what you were saying, it sounds innocuous.
Yeah.
Like, I want to follow my passions. What's wrong with that? I don't see a problem with that. But it's subtle. It's so subtle.
It is. And I know someone is here going to say, well, what's wrong with, being with God and following your passions? Nothing. But the greatest commandment is to follow God first. And if He's saying, hey, your goal in life is actually to follow yourself first, then that's where things really start to deter. And Satan's the master at making things really subtle and then guiding you down the wrong path. And before you know it, you're not on the straight and narrow anymore. And so this is just this beginning. He's not going to say, hey, let's go be evil together. So
if only.
So that was some of the characteristics, is live your life. Another thing he said was something about synchronicities. Wasn't that? Did you catch that?
Yeah, synchronicity. Like, what's that?
Yeah, and so I really had to dig into that, because I've heard this. Oh, I'm starting to hear this more and more and more. And one of his principles, I don't think I have this clip included. Maybe I do, and later on. But he says one of his principles is to follow the synchronicities in life. And I was like, well, what is that? And so these synchronicities, it's have you heard people say this before? Follow your synchronicities.
I don't think I've heard this specific word, but I mean, I imagine if you explain it, I'd probably, yeah, okay, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And so, like, if you were to say, man, should I go to this college or should I go to this college? And all of a sudden you hear a lot of people come up to you and say, hey, let me tell you about this college over here. Hey, let me tell you about this college over here. Hey, let me tell you about this. And you say, wow, that must mean I'm supposed to go to this college. It has no real correlation other than you heard about it. Or maybe
it's like a bunch of coincidences.
Yeah, a bunch of coincidences, exactly. And so the devil can do this. He can make coincidences happen in people's life, and then it's a synchronicity. Right? It must mean something. Oh, I just heard about that, and now I'm hearing about that. Be very careful with synchronicities and numerology, because it doesn't mean that the good is working for you. It doesn't necessarily mean the bad is working for you, but it does mean there could be too many coincidences are signs that something else is happening in your life, and that's what you need to be worried about. So,
well, it's like conditioning you to trust experience, right?
Yes, right.
Experience is the source of truth, right? So as soon as you find something that's a great experience, right, like a massive experience, then you're going to be like, well, that has to be true.
It's kind of like intuition. Have you heard of that? Oh yeah, I trust my intuition, followed my heart, and there was this one thing that people always said. There was something connected with wives or female ideas. A woman's what is it?
Women's intuition?
Yeah, women's intuition. That's what it was. That's the same word. Yeah. But I'm always very careful about that. Not that men can't have intuition as well, but at the same time, I think intuition is relying too much on oneself for truth, and I think we need to have a council, a broad council of counselors to help us make big decisions in life, not synchronicities and things like this.
Well, that's what Proverbs says. That's what the book. I forget what verse that is, but in Proverbs says something about many counselors.
Yeah. So it's some of the characteristics that I've discovered here. Okay, so how do we know this is legit? Well, look at these last few examples here. Hopefully, this is the right clip.
So a lot of people would not have heard of the phenomena that I'm about to witness, which is seeing a man, a normal, everyday man, have his body inhabited, or at least his consciousness and his mind inhabited by an extraterrestrial. That seems like such a foreign and crazy concept. But you are a woman that has witnessed this on multiple occasions.
Multiple times.
So, do you believe it? What nuances have you picked up on that these people embody when it happens that make you believe it? Like, why do you believe it?
The first reason is because I know, well, when it first started, I knew these people, they were my friends. And I knew they didn't speak that way. They usually use sentences and phrases that the person normally doesn't say. So that's one key that I look for. Another thing is that they completely forget the information. Sometimes they might remember it a little bit, but it feels like they're in a deep dream and they can't remember very much of it, almost like being underwater, so to speak.
Interesting. Okay, so remember back when we listened to Roger Murnau talk about this, I stopped it and said, listen to what he's saying here. He said that the person, characteristics were they shook a little bit, their eyes glazed over, and then they started saying things that they wouldn't normally say, in phrases they wouldn't normally say, in voices they wouldn't normally say, but it was still coming from that person. Interesting. And And this lady, she's I think a psychotherapist or psychologist. She says, I work in Hollywood, or I've seen people do this, and
Not
and
surprised.
these are, yeah, right. And so this kind of thing is happening, and it's happening over and over again, and these are the kind of characteristics that people are seeing come out of it. So I'm analyzing this and putting this thing together and going, okay, this guy is either has seen this stuff happening before and is like, I can make a business out of this, or he's really having something happen to him, and it's coming out with a very clear message of what he's trying to present. I personally, after reviewing some of this footage and seeing even more than what I've presented here, am sure that something else is happening here, at least majority of the time.
Oh, yeah. Possessed, huh?
Yeah. And so I have to go back to the Bible, and I have to say, okay, where in the world in the Bible was there a trance medium? Where was there a something that someone came and talked through, And I was scratching my head, and I was talking this over with my wife on the way home in the car, and I was like, she's like, well, you talk about it all the time. It's the Witch of Endor. And I was like, well, but you see the images. So while I worked at Amazing Facts, I remember our study guides and stuff would talk about the Witch of Endor. Had the picture of them with the spirit of Samuel coming up and Saul standing there and the Witch of Endor standing there, and they would both look at him and go, oh, look at this guy. And then I realized after reading it, Saul never saw this thing. This thing was either speaking through the witch, or he was asking the witch questions about what she was seeing, or both. Mm-hmm. Maybe it happened a little bit later. And so I thought it'd be good just to kind of go over that and read it through, because a lot of people might say, well, what are you talking about, Brad? I got to go back to this chapter and look. So it's worth it, I think, for us both to comment on this and dig into this further. So I'm going to bring it up here. Samuel 28. Badoop. All right. So Samuel 28 says, let's start in verse 7. Then Saul said to his servants, find me a woman who is a medium, that I may go to her and inquire of her. And his servants said to him, in fact, there is a woman who is a medium at Endor. They have really cool names back then, Endor. So Saul disguised himself and put on other clothes. Then he went, and the two men with him, and they came to the woman by night and said, please conduct a seance for me and bring up for me the one I shall name for you. The woman said to him, look, what Saul has done. How has he cut off the mediums and the spiritists of the land? Why then do you lay a snare for my life to cause me to die? And Saul swore to her by the Lord, saying, as the Lord lives, no punishment shall come upon you for this thing. Which is interesting, because Jesus said, don't swear. You can't even change your hairs. And Saul's doing this. So then the woman said, whom shall I bring up for you? He said, bring up Samuel for me. Okay, so at this point, you see the stage being set. This is what God's apparently, he wants to find something out, but Samuel's dead, and Saul wants to talk to Samuel, but he can't. So when the woman saw Samuel, she cried out with a loud voice, and the woman spoke to Saul, saying, why have you deceived me? For you are Saul. Something happened that Saul couldn't hear, and she all of a sudden knew that he was Saul. Because why wouldn't she have known this before? That's interesting to me. Number one, just one evidence right there that something else has happened that he can't see. Number two, the king said to her, do not be afraid. What do you see? The woman said, Saul, I saw a spirit ascending out of the earth. Now, what did he say? He said, what do you see? What did you see? In other words, he can't see anything. So everything's happening through, in other words, a trance medium, the Witch of Endor. And the woman said to Saul, I saw a spirit ascending out of the earth. Okay, so he saw a spirit. Great. So he said to her, what is its form? Okay, what does it look like? She said, an old man is coming up, and he is covered with a mantle, And Saul perceived, this is key because a lot of Christians really get this misunderstood, because later on in the story, the Bible makes a distinction and says that Samuel said. But it says here that Saul didn't even see it, and it says he perceived it was Samuel. And so he stooped with his face to the ground and bowed down. Now Samuel said to Saul, "Why have you disturbed me by bringing me up?" And Saul answered, "I am deeply distressed, for the Philistines are war against me, and God has departed me." Later we find out that God, he never even asked God anything, and doesn't answer me anymore, neither by prophets nor by dreams. Therefore I have called you that you may reveal what I should do. This is the really fascinating part right here. Listen to this. Then Samuel said, "So why do you ask me, seeing the Lord has departed from you and has become your enemy?" Well, who is this? This is absolutely Satan saying this, because he wants to make the Lord your enemy. It wouldn't be Samuel who wants Saul to have a very close-knit relationship with him. So this is another key element that says that this is absolutely the enemy that is trying to make him see that the Lord isn't against him. And the Lord said, and the Lord has done for himself as he spoke by me. For the Lord has torn the kingdom out of your hand and has given it to your neighbor David, because you did not obey the voice of the Lord or execute his fierce wrath upon Amalek. Therefore the Lord has done this thing to you this day. Moreover, this is interesting, moreover, the Lord will also deliver Israel with you into the hands of the Philistines, and tomorrow you and your sons will be with me. The Lord also delivered the armies of Israel into the hands of the Philistines. Interesting. Immediately Saul fell full length on the ground and was dreadfully afraid because of the words. In other words, you're going to die at the hands of the Philistines tomorrow, is what this thing was saying.
And he lost all hope.
Yeah, and he lost all hope. And so that's and a lot of people that want to believe in that the Bible is saying that there is not any representation. That there is people that are alive after you die. Just saying that is kind of weird to me. I say, well, look at this right here. Samuel came up, and look, he is right here. But let's look at the reasons why this isn't Samuel, because I think it's paramount in understanding this deception as it has occurred. 1 Corinthians 10:13 through 14. Let's bring that up real quick. And I apologize for monologuing here. Do you have anything to say before I dive into my 5 reasons? Anything stick out to you?
No, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. It's interesting stuff. I'm going to pop over to the screen cap here. So Saul died for his unfaithfulness. This is First Chronicles 10:13 through 14. So Saul died for his unfaithfulness, which he had committed against the Lord, because he did not keep the word of the Lord, and also because he consulted a medium for guidance, but he did not inquire of the Lord. He didn't inquire of the Lord. So he's like, God's against me. Help me. Well, you just kind of took a shortcut, and you should have inquired of the Lord. Therefore, he killed him and turned the kingdom over to David. And that this verse right here is solid evidence to me that, look, God's not bringing up Samuel. If it's him that said, you're done, you're toast. This is you're not inquiring of me. You're inquiring of the devil. And there's only 2. So, and the second idea is, only the witch saw the spirit. How can we be sure it's Samuel if only the witch saw a spirit? So a third idea is God's hand is not forced by a witch, and so you can't have a witch go, "Hey, look, I'm gonna go ahead and force God's hand to bring Samuel up, even though God's not talking to you. I have more power than God." That doesn't make any sense. A fourth reason prophecy was false. He took his own life. If you read in the story, he fell on his sword. So the Philistines didn't kill him and his sons. It was him that took his own life. So these things that don't know everything, they're good at calculating, but it surely wasn't. It wasn't him that. It wasn't Saul that made this prediction from God. And so we can see that the devil can create these signs and wonders and all this other stuff, which Revelation says will happen again in the last days. In Revelation 16 of 14, which is right here. For they are the spirits of demons, performing signs which go to the kings of the earth and to the whole world to gather them to the battle of the great day of God Almighty. Fascinating, huh?
Yeah. And I mean, the people that, I guess, believe in this kind of life after death, I mean, supposedly Samuel, if he was still alive after death, where should he be? In heaven, right? I think the verse says that she brought him out of the earth, right? He came from down,
Yeah.
And I'm just, like you're saying, I'm just wondering, like, how is this working? That God, who, like you said in the beginning, made it illegal to speak to mediums, right? On the penalty of death, would say, well, this medium is calling you, Samuel. You're going to have to go down there.
You got to do something about it now.
He's living in perfect peace and harmony in heaven. And, God's like, well, she's asking nicely, so get down there. I don't see that. I don't see that happening. It doesn't make sense. I don't see God, because that would make God hypocritical, right? That would make God someone who does not follow his own law.
Right.
Because he's consenting to speak to this, right? So
it really blows my mind that there are so many people who don't understand this from the Bible, and they are good Bible-believing Christians, but the scientific community, who is sometimes not even Christian at all, gets this. And let me explain that. Hopefully, if my clips are in the right order, this will prove what I just said. Watch this.
One thing that we encountered when we were reaching out to doctors, priests, members of the scientific community to ask them what they wanted to ask an extraterrestrial if they had the opportunity to meet one, was a lot of pushback when it came to channeling. Whenever we would mention channeling, they backed away from the movie. They didn't want to be associated with it. I asked a couple of them why, and they said their biggest concern was that channeling can sometimes be seen as demonic, that potentially you could think you're channeling an extraterrestrial, but really it's a demon. And then they also worried about possession, about this other entity being invited into a body and then choosing not to leave. Does that sort of thing happen? Is that even logical?
No, nothing can happen to you unless you willingly agree. Each person has full control over their body. They have sovereignty. So unless you allow some sort of demonic entity to come into your body, it wouldn't happen. Oh man.
You think?
Whoops. I'm going to pause it right there. That's going to be a good clip, but I want to talk about this real quick. She's oh man, that's such a crafty thing to say, because she's right in a way. You know what I mean? And in a way, you do have Satan has the conditions. He has you have to agree. That's why the entity was asking, "Are you sure you want to do this?" And you have to agree to it.
True.
But you can agree in more subtle ways than he's
true.
very crafty about making you agree to things. So,
but I mean, once you give up dominion one time, I mean, that's it. You ever heard that hymn? Sin will take you further than you wish to go.
Yeah. Wow.
Slowly but surely taking control. Yeah, it's like, maybe in the beginning they once the contract is signed, dominion is sold over, and the only person that can redeem you from that dominion is Jesus.
Amen.
Right? You've basically sold your soul to them, right? In the same way Adam gave his dominion of the world to Satan, You know, now when you say yes that first time, it's like you are now under their power.
Yeah.
Right. And you cannot bring yourself out of that. You know, the only thing you can do is call upon Jesus to redeem you, you know, but that also requires your own consent there too. You know what I mean? So
absolutely,
to say that you have sovereignty like that, it's like, yeah, maybe before you gave it up, but you know, like the Bible says it clearly, you can only have one master, right? You can either be a slave under God and allow him to control our wills, or be a slave under Satan. You know what I mean? So this thought of having sovereignty over our own flesh, I feel like it's a bit of deception. You know, we think that we have control, but how often do we just fall under the curse of sin? You know what I mean? We're slaves. That's what Romans says. We're slaves to sin.
Slaves. You're either slave to Satan or you're slave to God. I'd rather be a slave to God because he's a good master. And
amen.
So I think it's really fascinating to see exactly what's happening here. In fact, everyone wonders, can this thing be physical, or is it just all spiritual? I think we need to be a little more, not us, but I think the world in general, Christianity, and interpreting what is a spiritual event doesn't necessarily mean it's ethereal. It doesn't necessarily mean that you can put your hand through it. It's not ghostly. There's lots that can be happening, and that there's lots that is very physical about this life, and maybe it's more transmedium, I think, is the new word that everyone's using in the government right now. Something else is happening here that can be exist in physical form and non-physical form as well. This is the kind of stuff we talk about in this program. We expound upon it from the Bible. If you find value in this, give me a call, 423-749-0000. I want to help you find a real estate broker that is good for you for your next move. Also, you can also join our Patreon, patreon.com/strangenormal. Become part of our private community. We'll have those in the links pinned on the bottom. So let's dig it further into Tucker Carlson's strange thing that happened to him a long time ago. He's just now talking about this week.
Do you think the presence of evil is kickstarting people to wonder about the good?
That's what happened to me.
That's what happened to you?
Oh yeah, I had a direct experience with it.
In the milieu of journalism, or just
in my bed at night, and I got attacked while I was asleep with my wife and 4 dogs in the bed, and mauled, physically mauled.
In a spiritual attack by a demon?
Yeah, by a demon, or by something unseen that left.
Is that right?
Claw marks on my sides, on my.
So it left physical marks?
Oh, they're still there. Yeah. A year and a half ago.
Was your wife terrified? I know you were.
I wasn't. I was totally confused. I woke up and I couldn't breathe, and I thought I was going to suffocate, and I walked around outside, and then I walked in, and my wife and dogs had not woken up, and they're very light sleepers. And then I had these terrible pains on my rib cage and on my shoulder, and I was just in my boxer shorts, and I went and flipped on the light in the bathroom, and I had 4 claw marks on either side underneath my arms and on my left shoulder, and they're bleeding.
Wait, they were bleeding?
They're bleeding, yeah. No, they're actual claw marks. And I sleep on my side, so I wasn't clawing myself. I don't have long nails. And they didn't fit my hands anyway. But yeah, that happened. So I'm not from a world where things like that happen. I never heard of anything like that happening before. I had no idea what that was. I knew it was spiritual immediately.
You did? Okay, that was gonna be my question.
Yeah. I don't understand to this day. I'm not gonna put it more.
You didn't try to refute the spiritual part in your own mind. You went right into the.
Well, it didn't make any sense, and it doesn't now. But I'm not from a, what do they call it, faith tradition that talks about things like that or even acknowledges their existence. Like, there's nothing like that. I've never heard anybody say anything like that in my whole life.
What was the next day like?
Well, the next morning I woke up and I thought that was the weirdest dream I've ever had. And then I saw blood on my sheets and I realized that was not a dream at all. I called my assistant, who was like the only evangelical Christian I know, well enough to call with something bizarre like that, totally bizarre like that. And she said, oh yeah, no, that happens. Yeah, people are attacked in their bed by demons. What? What are you even talking about? Yeah. So, I mean, I'm not leaving anything out, and I'm not pretending to understand that. I can only say what happened to me, and that did happen to me. And then I was seized with this very intense desire to read the Bible, which I then started without any study aids or anything. I bought a Bible that didn't have any. I'm not interested in editorializing in the Bible. I just want to read it and see what's in there myself. I have very low levels of trust for Christian pastors, most of whom, I'm just not a fan at all. And sorry to say that, but that's how I feel. And so I don't want to hear other people's opinions. I just want to see what's in there. And so I spent 1.5 years reading it, and then I started rereading it. And it was just a transformative experience for me, but I'm not, holding myself out as someone from whom you could get theological advice, because I'm
sure,
not.
Of course.
I mean, I don't know. I don't understand any of it. But yeah, that happened.
God
to me.
allowed the demon?
I have no idea what happened. All I know is I was dead asleep with my wife and dogs, and I woke up with claw marks on my rib cage underneath my arms, and it didn't even make sense. My arms would, anyway, whatever. No one has to believe me. I don't care.
It doesn't matter.
But that happened to me, and so I just was like, wow, that's real. Whatever that is, I'm even not sure what it is.
It's very real. And so then that presence of that evil launches something.
This is a documentary coming up. I'm gonna watch it. It seems interesting. I'm sure he's pleased with me sharing this, but I think it's gonna be we're gonna see more and more in this. And I'm not saying that hey, the devil only has 4 fingers. I don't believe in like there are 4 scratch marks on my side. I believe in scare tactics. You know what I mean? There's scare tactics, and from what I can tell about this ufology thing, the devil is planning to present himself as many different types of entities to coerce humanity into believing something is out there. And if this public figure, Tucker Carlson, can present that better, of course I'm going to get permission from God to go attack him just a little bit, so he talks about how this 4-fingered creature attacked his side. I don't know at this point I think we're still learning about this, because we're told to study it and understand it. And so I think there's that's all I'm saying, and there's that. But any thoughts before we go back to Bashar?
Yeah, it's just, there's definitely a spiritual awakening happening right now. Mm-hmm. It's like you can feel like the volcano about to explode, especially with this election, depending on who wins. Like, you can see that there's going to definitely be, there's a revival happening, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And whether it's a false revival or a true revival, I think we can see with the fruits. It's too early to make a judgment on people like Tucker Carlson and stuff. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure. I've seen some of his stuff. He strikes me as a sincere person, but also I don't know him. Yeah. I don't know him, and I don't know what agendas they're pushing. Right. But I see that they're definitely pushing spiritualism out into the public eye. Like, for example, I know my sister-in-law, she was pretty anti-Christian for like majority of the time that I've known her. Mm-hmm. And just recently, in the past couple of years, she's been following like, I think there's this Candace
Owens.
Owens. She recently became baptized Catholic, and she follows her, and now suddenly she's interested in Christianity. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And I feel so many different people. There's so many celebrities and people that are becoming Christian, and there is this revival happening. And it's just like Ellen White said, I mean, there's these 2 big errors that will deceive this whole world: the state of the dead and Sunday sacredness. And
that's
it's happening.
It's happening right now, and we're going to see it. According to the final clip, which I might not show tonight because it's a full 17 minutes. We have a lot to comment on that. But I'll probably make a whole nother show about it because it's Bashar's, I'm going to call it his manifesto. What he's saying is, oh, do I give it away? No, I'm not going to give it away. You just have to watch. I'll probably push it out this next week. Maybe just a clip of it. We'll see.
All right.
But what are the rules of the messenger, Bashar? That's what's coming up next. Let's see. Let's dig into what his rules are and what he thinks people need to know. Watch this.
The passion is the beginning of your path, following it. It's the driving force. It's what makes things happen. It's what allows the manifestation to flow if you also follow the rest of the principles, which basically is that, synchronicity becomes the organizing principle of your life. It becomes the path of least resistance. And everyone has their path.
Path of least resistance.
That Bashar has said over and over again. It's like you can share whatever information is appropriate for you to share. You're not about to force things on them or anything like that, but you're giving them an opportunity to consider another path. But what they do with that information, he says, it's none of your business because you don't know their path. You don't know that they have to go through certain things to learn certain lessons in their way. And it may not be time for them to understand these principles. Maybe someday they'll get it. But remember, we're all infinite, eternal spirits. There's no hurry.
Here we go.
So that's one of the key things that he really pushes out there constantly is that we're all infinite, eternal spirits. Exactly what the snake told Eve. Hey, you know what? You can be as God, knowing good and evil. And by the way, you will not surely die. You're an infinite, eternal spirit. I think the rules of the messenger. This is what he said. Essentially, I'm going to condense it. Give them a passion, and make sure you follow all your synchronicities. This is the synchronicities of life. And then also follow these three principles. Follow the path of least resistance. What does the Bible say about the path? The path is narrow. The rest, the one leading to destruction, is broad. It's easy. It's the path of least resistance. Give them a choice for a different path. What kind of path is he talking about here? And we're all infinite, eternal spirits. Sounds to me like either this guy is a Satanist himself, or he's really receiving these things from a channeled being. That's
synchronicities. I googled synchronicities. I think it comes from this psychologist known as Carl Jung, and from what I remember, he was a spiritualist as well. I think he was a pantheist or
pantheist. Yeah, okay.
He believed that we all are in God, and we're all God, and we're all connected.
Oh wow!
Through consciousness and whatnot. So like this synchronicities, it's just demonic. I don't know how else to say it. It's just demonic.
It has to be. At least that's the only time I hear about it is from these weird New Age stuff. So this whole thing has been leading up to this one couple questions that this guy has been saying, and really the most telling one is this 17-minute manifesto that I'm gonna talk about in another episode. But let's talk a little bit about this Trump idea, because this is what the beginning clip was all about. I'm gonna show you the whole clip now, because if this thing is truly trying to predict the future, they don't know. They don't know, but they can calculate, and this is what they're calculating right now. Watch this.
The question we have, I have two spiritual teachers, big prediction telling us that Trump will win and we are going to migrate to moon, migrate to Mars. I have a spiritual teacher on the other side told me, Camilla's going to win and with the open contact and we're going a better earth. So I'm very happy because no matter who wins, I will have a better world. So my question to you is, how does the upcoming election impact especially the humanity and especially Canada?
One moment. We are checking something. Because generally speaking, we are not really allowed to comment deeply on your politics. But since things are changing somewhat in the near future.
Whoa. Okay, let me pause it right there. What did he say? Since things are changing, number one, this is him being a trance medium, speaking as whatever it is that's inhabiting him. We know that they're demonic. And he said, hey, by the way, I'm checking because things are about to change, and maybe I can say things about what's happening now because things are progressing enough. Just a second, let me communicate. Okay, I can tell you something. And now he's going to tell you what he's going to tell you.
We are checking to see what we are allowed to say. I cannot give you specifics about the country of Canada. I am allowed to give you some very general specifics about the election in the United States. However, there must be caveats with this, since we are normally not allowed to comment on such things. There are certain things we can say, but if we say them, because it is your world, are you willing to take responsibility for the responses of your population to what we are about to say? And before you answer, think carefully about what that means. Are you willing to take responsibility for what we are about to say? Be sure the answer is yes.
Yes.
All right. This is what we are allowed to say. The female will lead to open contact. Do I need to say more?
No.
Are you willing to take responsibility for the information?
Yes.
The male will lead to the termination of the United States and World War III. End of comment.
Okay. That's interesting. And so I think it's interesting for a number of reasons. Number one, if something like that doesn't happen, this guy's done. I mean, that was such a bold statement that he's not going to be doing very many presentations anymore. And so I tend to think, yeah, okay, some say it's really general. It probably is. But I also think if this is legit, what they're trying to say is we don't actually know, but we do know this is the plan. And generally speaking, our plan is this. It could go either way. We're going to try to present more information out there as we become more physical if this person is elected, or we're just going to play on his emotions and cause World War III, and that will allow us to appear. Either way, they appear. Either way, we're going to have a world war of some kind. That's how I feel about this. But they're trying to be sneaky and trying to be predictable. But
sure. I mean, it's funny how he's like covering his tracks, so to speak, I suppose, saying like, oh, you know, very general specifics, how he put it. I'm not sure what that means.
Yeah.
And he's I guess I don't understand why he's asking for them to take responsibility about what he's about to say. So, yeah.
I don't either.
That had me skeptical, but I mean, like I said, like you said, it's calculations within calculations, you know?
Yeah. It's weird, man. I mean, it's weird. So this is a guy that we're going to continue watching because he's kind of a weirdo. But people are catching on. I was going to play a commercial that talks about that I saw on YouTube that said that they They're confident that Camilla will start World War III. Look, I'm not political, and I thought I'm just going to skip it. But I think it's interesting that one side believes that big things are going to happen. The other side believes big things are going to happen. I don't know, and I don't care. I don't like either of them, to be honest with you. I don't. But this is interesting. Watch this. This is one of the commenters that came up and asked him questions. She believes that this is a very spiritual event. Watch what she says about it.
Okay, so when you talk about the shifting to the new earth, and those that follow the formula and have broadened their bandwidth have the opportunity to make that shift.
But you're shifting now.
Yes. But this is my question. So it feels similar to the story of the second coming of Christ in the Bible.
Yes, well, the idea of the second coming is actually the awakening of the Christ consciousness in every single individual.
What?
It's not about the coming of a single person.
Okay.
It's about the same thing as opening up to the Buddha nature, the Krishna spirit. Same idea. It's allowing you to be who you truly are as a full soul.
Great.
Of course.
Okay, that's good. That's what I was thinking too, so I appreciate that.
Oh, all right.
That's what I was thinking too, of course. I obviously this is completely off base, and I've heard the Catholic Church say things like this. Oh, it's not actually a coming of God literally, but it's actually a spiritual awakening, or it's a there is no actually physical coming of God. I've heard them say that before, and I hear it echoing throughout the New Age movement and all this other stuff. And so when they say, oh, it sounds like when you'll be raptured and changed in a moment, in a blink of an eye, which is I think what she was referring to, they assume that there's going to be a major change happening. So it's obvious to me that this whole UFO, UAP, this whole agenda is really culminating to be a very spiritual event that people are going to be very confused by.
This is exactly what Roger Morneau was talking about. He said that, the spirits will give counsels. So what did he say? I forget exactly what word that he used. But
I don't have that
principles. I think it was the principles. Like if you follow our principles, we will usher in this new age of Christ consciousness or whatever. Something like that. But you see, it's like there's this new age, a new millennium, a new kind of shift. I think that's what they said, a new shift.
Mm-hmm.
So we truly see that. Yeah, I mean, and Roger Morneau had it right.
Mm-hmm.
I think he was in contact with demonic spirits, and they give him some very, very high level insider knowledge that I don't think they expected to be blasted out in the open like that. I don't think they expected that. Because when was that interview done? Like in the 80s?
80s or 90s? Yeah, it was a long time ago. So
so it's just astounding. It's astounding just how it's all coming to kind of a climax.
It is.
We
really is.
We definitely live in interesting times.
Can I play just a minute of that 17 minutes? I think it's worth it. I'll just and then we'll
all right. Tease it.
This is interesting. Watch this. I'm gonna, because he's really gonna get into some stuff here, and when it comes to a point where I have to comment on something and I can't stop myself, I'll stop it. But and we'll go on. But this is something, and it's worth a shot. So let me see if I still have it up here. Is this it? Let me see real quick. I want to make sure this is it, and I'm not. Ooh, I don't have it queued because I wasn't expecting to play it. Hold on, folks. We're gonna add one more clip in here. Maybe. 10 UFO. Oh, well, you're in luck. We might not have it. Let me see where I put it. There, it's in folder 30. Oh, I'm in 29, that's why. Okay, so it is here. All right, here we go. That's the one. Okay, So here we go. Play this clip.
Now, over the course of the next few years, there will be certain things that will occur that will let you know that contact is about to happen, not only in terms of an increase in sightings, but also in the way in which this may occur. There are several paths that may be taken by extraterrestrial beings, such as ourselves and others, to begin to initiate you into becoming familiar with our presence in a physical way. One of those ways may be something like this. Ships may appear over your oceans just offshore, so that you know the ship will stay there over the water. You may watch it from shore. It will not move. You will not feel in any way, shape, or form threatened because it is not coming over your heads, over land where you are, but remaining at arm's length out over the water, so that it gives you time to absorb the fact that they are there, off the coastlines of different countries around your world. They may be there for quite some time to allow you the opportunity to gather, to travel to those places, to see the ships. We understand that sometimes they may be surrounded by some of your aerial vehicles, such as helicopters and so on and so forth. But that will all just be part of the show. They will remain there to give you time to get used to the idea that we are here. To get used to the idea that this is the beginning of a great change upon your planet, of a great change in your society. To give you time to discuss among yourselves how you will respond to this change. Take your time. It's fine. There's no hurry. There's no rush. We're not going anywhere. So, it may happen that way, but it may also happen in a few other ways. One way may be that you will start to see more orbs of light, which not only can be representative of spirit entities, but also are actually a type of extraterrestrial energy probe.
Okay. So there you go. This is going to go on. Yeah, actually, the whole clip goes on and talks about how are you ready spiritually? And I think that was a very interesting way to say it, because at the end he's like, look, things are going to start changing in your world. Are you ready? Are you ready? And what do you to think about what you think of us, what you think about yourself, what we think about you, and all this other stuff? And I started reflecting on that, and not necessarily from his perspective, but from a more of a biblical perspective. If things do start changing in our lives, and things do show up, which we know they will, according to Bible prophecy, we just didn't think it was going to be in this way. If things do start changing, it would really solidify in the minds of the inhabitants of Earth, hey, are you going to believe one way, or are you going to believe the biblical way? Mm-hmm. You got to pick and choose. And in that way, those bundles are being either taken or they're going to be burned. And so it's possible that what he's saying is true. It's possible that he's just completely making it up. But either way, it's a strange normal.
That's right. Something he says is that, take your time. We're not going anywhere. And, I want to say that that's not what the Bible teaches. The Bible teaches that we are at the end of the earth and that we don't have much time. Mm-hmm. Now is the time to really sit down and reflect, because when these changes happen, they will happen quickly.
Yeah.
And now we have the time to change. Now we have the time to come closer to God, to see what is it, God, that I need to become closer to you.
Amen.
You know, don't take your time for that. Search, like the Bible says, call to him while he is yet near. Because soon will come a time when he is no longer near to us. You know, so we need to be ready.
Very good. Very good. Thank you, Christian, for being on the program. It's much easier to do the program with a co-host. And I was wondering if you could close it out for us tonight.
Sure.
Okay.
Well, let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you, Lord, for the wonderful book of truth that you have preserved through thousands of years. We know, Lord, that there has been much opposition to this book. There has been much attempts to destroy it or to belittle it, to criticize it, to make it of none effect. But your truth stands forever, and it is eternal. May you open our hearts and our minds to receive your truth, Lord. Not the truth that stems from our own hearts, but that resides in heaven, that is enshrined on your throne, or the truth that comes straight from your words, from your lips. Lord, help us to overcome all these things that keep us away from you. Help us to meditate and reflect, Lord, on what is it that stops me from making this step to follow you more sincerely, to follow you more earnestly. May you be with us, Lord. May you grant us courage and strength as we live in these strange times. And may you help us prepare, Lord, for what is coming in the near future. We love you, and we pray in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. All right, stick around just for a second. We're going to do a short close. Thank you guys so much for sticking in there. And this has kind of been a long episode, but I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any comments on it, please leave them in the comments below. I'd love to hear from of them. I read every single one, even though I might not respond or click like or heart every single one. It's just there's so much happening right now, but I do read every single one, and I'd love to hear from you. It also helps promote this video. So if you aren't going to share it, if you aren't going to like it, that's fine. Leave me a comment. I'd love to hear about it. Folks, this has been Pure Strangeness and Absolute Normalcy. Strange Normal. We'll see you on the next episode. See you later.
You're watching Strange Normal, where the truth is the truth.